Volume 1 Juvenile Blood Chapter 10 How the Villain is Made. What if you lose? He asked. Boss Gao sneered. Humph! You are very confident. Do you think you're going to win? Xie Wendong asked. What if you lose? Boss Gao glared at him. I lost, you go. Xie Wendong said. What if I lose? Are you bored? If you lose, I'll kill you. That's a little unfair, isn't it? It doesn't seem to matter to you that I win or lose, does it? After Xie Wendong kept a close eye on him, Boss Gao felt at a loss in his brain and asked, What do you think we should do? Xie Wendong stared at the eldest brother and said with a smile, I lost my life to you, at your disposal, even if you let me be your little brother. But if you lose, you have to promise me one thing, whatever it is. One thing? He's not going to be with me. Boss Gao, thinking of blushing, nodded and said, Okay, I promise you. Xie Wendong stopped smiling, nodded and said, Boss Gao, let's start. He dare not underestimate the young girl in front of him. The two men slowly approached the field, and at last they both stopped and stared at each other, and neither dared to rush out first. The two men stood motionless in the field, but their heads were already sweaty. A drop of sweat from Xie Wendong's forehead slipped down and dripped into his eyes, but he dared not wipe it, and the pressure given to him by this girl did not allow him to move. Time seemed to stop, and the pressure from the two men made the eldest brother in the room look sweaty and the atmosphere dared not breathe. My name is Gao Huimi. Ha! Boss Gao's inexplicable sentence stunned Xie Wendong, and at the moment he was stunned, Boss Gao stabbed Xie Wendong in the abdomen. When he reflected that there was no hurry to hide, he instinctively grabbed the wrist of the knife held by the eldest brother Gao with both hands, and kept retreating with the momentum of the body, until he was held up by a table behind him. Boss Gao held the knife in both hands and stabbed forcefully. Xie Wendong grabbed her wrist with both hands and dared not relax. The two men were deadlocked together. Xie Wendong gritted his teeth and said, You are so mean. No, no, no. No, no, no. Boss Gao leaned forward and said, Same to you. Xie Wendong shouted, with an explosive force, pushed the eldest brother's wrist forward and rolled his body to one side. Boss Gao used his strength on his wrist and stabbed him on the table behind Xie Wendong. It was so powerful that the blade pierced half an inch deep and pierced the table. Xie Wendong secretly called it a close call. Don't give Gao Bao a chance to draw a knife and kick her. Boss Gao had no choice but to give up the knife and flicker aside. The body still stood firm. Xie Wendong rushed over, hugged the eldest brother's Xiaoman waist one by one, lifted it up vigorously, and then fell to the ground with a lot of strength, giving him a dull hum, and the bones all over his body seemed to fall apart. Now Xie Wendong could no longer control whether men and women were given or not. He threw himself on the eldest brother Gao and overwhelmed her body that she was about to get up. Boss Gao was so rudely pressed by the man, but his hands and feet were pinned down by Xie Wendong. His face flushed with anger, his mouth opened, and he bit on Xie Wendong's shoulder. The mouthful was so deep that Xie Wendong almost cried out in pain. He gritted his teeth and used one. Volume 1 Juvenile Blood Chapter 10 How the Villain is Made. The hand grabbed the eldest brother's two wrists and pressed her head on the ground with the other. Watching Boss Gao's mouth full of blood smiling to himself, Xie Wendong was so angry that his veins jumped so high. Xie Wendong no longer hesitated, squatted on the ground, put the boss's soft body on his leg, grasped her double bowls with one hand, and swung the other hand to hit him on the ass. When did Boss Gao suffer such grievances? He struggled with all his strength. But after all, she is a girl. Although she is 2 years older than Xie Wendong, she is still unable to compete with men physically. Boss Gao felt that his strength disappeared little by little, but Xie Wendong's hand did not stop, so he had to accept his fate. This guy should spank himself in front of so many people. The boss thought of this, while crying like a child. The sound of crying was shocking and sobbing. Even Xie Wendong felt that he was a heinous villain. Stop his hand, gasp for breath and say loudly, If you ever stab me with a knife again, I'll spank you again. On hearing this, Boss Gao cried even louder, so that Xie Wendong did not know where to put his hands and feet, scratching his head and scratching his face. The brother of Boss Gao was also silly and muttered to himself, "Is this man still Boss Gao?" At this time, there was nothing Xie Wendong could do. If Boss Gao was hard, he was not afraid, but if he was soft, he could survive. It was this crying that confused him. It is said that a woman's most powerful weapon is tears, which is true at all. At least now Xie Wendong thinks so, and he has a lot of experience. He crouched motionless, and Boss Gao crawled on his leg crying with no sign that it would stop. Xie Wendong sighed, "Alas! Don't cry. It's my fault, all right? Or you can make me cry, too." As he said that, Xie Wendong almost burst into tears, and he felt more aggrieved. Boss Gao cried loudly again, turned over and sat on Xie Wendong's lap, hugging his neck and leaning his cheek against his shoulder. Ooh! Xie Wendong felt his shoulders wet. He turned around and felt dizzy. Boss Gao's tears and snot were wiped on his shoulder clothes. Finally, Xie Wendong was forced to do nothing and said loudly, "Sister, don't cry. Why not count me as a loser? If you want to kill and scratch me, you can do whatever you want." Boss Gao was also tired of crying and sobbed and said, "I lost, but I'm not the one who can't afford to lose. Just say what you want me to do." Xie Wendong felt that his head was very big now, sighed and said, "What I want you to do is stop crying." Boss Gao feels very comfortable on Xie Wendong's shoulder, which not only smells like a man, but also makes people feel a kind of sense of security. "Why are you wet?" As soon as he saw that Xie Wendong's clothes were wet by his own tears, he raised his head and changed it to the other shoulder, and said in a quiet voice, "Is that all you ask?" Xie Wendong nodded. "Yes, what I want most now is for you to stop crying. It's the deadliest weapon I've ever seen." Boss Gao smiled and said, "You are so bad." Xie Wendong said with a puzzled face, "What have I done wrong?" Boss Gao, who patted himself comfortably on the shoulder, said, "I said, sister, can you get up?" Volume 1 Juvenile Blood Chapter 10 How the Villain is Made. There are a lot of people watching us perform. Boss Gao stood up reflectively. Looking around, everyone looks like a fool looking at her. With a ruddy face, Boss Gao bowed his head and said, "Yes. No, no, no. No, no, no. I'm sorry. Get your clothes dirty." Xie Wendong moved his legs, which were numb under the pressure of Boss Gao, stood up and said, "It doesn't matter, as long as you stop crying and give your clothes to you." Hearing his words, Boss Gao felt so sweet that he narrowed his eyes and looked at Xie Wendong. Xie Wendong patted his clothes and asked, "Sister, are you really Gao Huimei?" Gao Huimei nodded and said, "Yes, this is my real name. You can call me Xiaomei from now on." Xie Wendong thought, the eldest Gao is Gao Huimei, and the motorcycle girl is Gao Huiyu. They are. Seeing Xie Wendong bowing her head and saying nothing, Gao Huimei pulled his sleeve and said, "What are you thinking? Why don't you talk? Is my name strange?" Xie Wendong immediately shook his head and said, "No, it's a beautiful name. You don't hate me now?" Gao Huimei said in a delicate voice, "I have never. No, no, no. No, no, no." The following words did not go on, bowed his head and played with the corner of his clothes. Gao Huimei's shy appearance almost made her younger brother's eyes fall off. Look at each other. The eyes are written. Is the world in chaos today? Or it's the end of the world? Terrible, Xie Wendong said. But I have one more thing to say. There is no room for two tigers in one mountain. Sooner or later, one of us will have to launch the stage of number 1 middle school. This sentence shocked Gao Huimei and calmed down. Do you mean which one of us will quit? Xie Wendong said confidently. I have the ability and the strength to stay. I do not regard the Black Dragon Brotherhood in my eyes, and I also have your influence. Gao Huimei interrupted him and said, You didn't put it in your eyes, did you? Xie Wendong smiled, nodded and said nothing. Gao Huimei looked at the man in front of him for a long time before she said, I'm not the one to give up easily, but I'm also smart. I know I'm no match for you, so you can't just let me break up. Xie Wendong nodded and said, I will prove it to you. I'll disband the Black Dragon Brotherhood in half a month. If I can't do it, I'll break up. If you can really do it, I'll break up without saying a word. No one knows the strength of Lu Jinglong better than Gao Huimei. After all, they have been fighting for so long. She thinks that Xie Wendong is still young and arrogant and must suffer at the hands of Lu Jinglong. Well, it's a deal. Xie Wendong put her hand in front of Gao Huimei, and Gao Huimei hit him hard and said, "It's a deal." Xie Wendong smiled to Gao Huimei and said, "In that case, I have to go and see my two brothers. Goodbye, Sister Gao." Gao Huimei nodded, opened her mouth, and finally said nothing. Xie Wendong waved, turned and walked out of the drawing room. After coming out, I took a long breath and thought that the fight with Gao Huimei just now was really fascinating. Shake your head and laugh at what you think. Gao Huimei is not in the same society as herself, and she is the boss of the youth gang. She is just a gangster now. Gao Huimei watched Xie Wendong leave for a long time. For a long time. I made a decision in my heart that I must conquer this man. No, it's a boy. Xie Wendong was just halfway down the stairs on the third floor, and a large group of people came up from below, headed by Three Eyes, as well as Li Shuang and Gao Chong, whose faces were black and blue. At the sight of Xie Wendong, everyone was obviously relieved. Li Shuang asked loudly, "Brother Dong, are you all right?" Now Xie Wendong's face is stained with blood and his shoulders are red. Xie Wendong swept everyone. He said with a smile, "I'm fine. Why is Brother Zhang here?" Three Eyes looked at Xie Wendong carefully, confirmed that he was all right, and said with a smile, "You have a new brother named Zhang Yanjiang who asked me to come. Brother Dong, why do you have to let me know if you have an accident?" No. No. Alas, we can't do this next time. Volume 1 Juvenile Blood Chapter 11 _ How Bad Guys Are Made 1. Looking at the worry on his face 3 times, a warm current flowed through Xie Wendong's heart and said gratefully, "Okay, Brother Zhang. I will be the first to tell you what happens in the future, all right?" Three Eyes laughed and said, "That's more like it. What are brothers for? Those who can think of you in times of crisis are called brothers." Xie Wendong nodded and said yes, and what else to say, he suddenly felt dizzy. Everything in front of me was spinning fast, holding the handle of the stairs with his hand. The body kept shaking, and his face was suddenly very white. "Brother Dong, what's the matter with you?" Three Eyes shouted to hold Xie Wendong, and with both hands, he picked him up and strode downstairs. Others were startled, too. Li Shuang shouted, "Damn it! I'm going to find Boss Gao desperately." With that, he pulled out a knife from behind and ran upstairs. The brothers below also picked up the guys one after another and rushed up with Li Shuang. Xie Wendong, who was held in his arms with Three Eyes, was anxious. He wanted to shout but could not. He was weak and said, "Brother Zhang, call Li Shuang back quickly." Three Eyes saw Dong Ji face with anxiety and shouted, "Lao Fei, you come back. Brother Dong wants to talk to you." Li Shuang, who went up to the third floor, hesitated, stamped his foot and ran back. "Brother Dong, what's the matter? I led the bitch to pay for it." Xie Wendong looked at him and said angrily, "Do you know what's going on? Always so impulsive, I'll go back. Don't mess with Boss Gao in the future, okay?" Li Shuang saw that Xie Wendong was angry, and the atmosphere did not dare to say a word. He pinned the knife to his waist and asked carefully, "Brother Dong, why don't you let us get even with the boss? We are not afraid of her." Xie Wendong wanted to say something, but he felt dizzy and waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I won't know at 1:30. I'll explain it to you later." No. The voice was getting lower and lower, and finally Xie Wendong sank his head and fainted. "Brother Dong." As soon as they saw the appearance of Xie Wendong, they called in unison. The Three Eyes dared not stay, jumped down the stairs and ran out of the building. Run outside the school, take a taxi and go straight to the nearby hospital. Others followed and stopped cars one after another, ready to follow to the hospital to see Xie Wendong's condition. But he was stopped by Gao Chong and shouted, "Let's go back first. It's inconvenient for so many people to go to the hospital." I'll come back and tell you about Brother Dong later. Hearing Gao Chang's words, everyone was reluctant, but they had to stay and wait for the news. Li Shuang, Gao Chang, and Zhang Yanjiang got on the bus. Zhang Yanjiang said to the driver that he followed the car in front of him, and the driver chased him. From behind came the scolding of other drivers. Hey, are you still leaving? I'm not going. Damn it, if you don't go, call a chicken feather car. Hey, 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 what are you doing? I want to hit someone. Grass. I'm holding my breath. I'll proofing first. The Second People's Hospital of J-City. How's my friend, doctor? A doctor came out of the emergency room and Three Eyes rushed into the front and asked anxiously. The doctor looked at him and said, Who are you to the patient? Seeing the doctor, he caught fire in his three eyes, took a breath and said politely, Doctor, I am a friend of the patient. I wonder if my friend is in danger. The doctor said, No, I don't know yet. I just found the shoulder and the tiger. Volume 1 Juvenile Blood Chapter 11 _ How Bad Guys Are Made 1. If there is a trauma in the mouth, we won't know until the test results come out. Three Eyes said urgently, Can we go in and have a look now? The doctor turned his mouth. How can that be? The patient is still resting and no one else can be disturbed. Three Eyes nodded, took out 200 fast money from his pocket and put it into the doctor's hand and said, We are his best friends. We just want to go in and have a look. We will never disturb him. Please rest assured and see if there is any accommodation. The doctor looked at the money in his hand and immediately had a different attitude. He patted 3 times on the shoulder and said, Since that's the case, it would be unreasonable for me not to let you in. He turned to the nurse behind and said, Let them go in and have a look, but you have to hurry up. The test results will be out tomorrow. Don't worry. Three Eyes nodded and said thank you, and Li Shuang went into the ward. Xie Wendong looked pale and lay on the bed with his eyes closed, with a medicine tube in his arm. As Li Shuang strode forward, he grabbed Xie Wendong's hand, shed tears on the bed and murmured, It's all my fault. Brother Dong wouldn't have done this if he hadn't been trying to save me. It's all my fault. No, no, no. It was hard for everyone to hear Li Shuang say this, and he bowed his head and wiped his tears. Three Eyes slightly red came over, kicked Li Shuang's ass and said, It's all happened. It's no use crying. Li Shuang even said, I'm worried. Three Eyes shouted, Damn it. I'm more worried than you. I didn't even cry. No, no, no. No, no, no. Thought. The doctor said there was no serious trauma. Why is Brother Dong still in a coma? Is there an internal injury? Xie Wendong on the bed suddenly moved, opened his eyes and said, Xiao Shuang, if you cry next to me again, I will beat you into a pig's head. Everyone saw that Xie Wendong woke up and gathered around the bed and asked, Brother Dong, are you all right? Xie Wendong stretched, looked at everyone and said, If you can let me sleep a little longer, I'm sure I'm all right. Then he pushed Li Shuang's head and laughed and scolded, Damn it. I'm not dead yet. Why are you crying? Li Shuang touched his head sheepishly and wiped his tears. Others put their hearts down and laughed when they heard Xie Wendong say this. Zhang Yanjiang took Xie Wendong by the hand and said, Brother Dong, you can no longer take risks on your own, but for an accident. No, no, no. I'm going to go into the world with you. Xie Wendong smiled and said, Don't worry. My life is so hard that I don't want to give it to Rip unless he has enough seats and wants me to sit. One word amused everyone. Xie Wendong got up and got out of bed, his face a little flushed, said bravely, Don't worry about me, I'm fine. But some people are going to have something to do. Half a month later, I'm going to let number 1 middle school be mine. Boss Gao and the Black Dragon Brotherhood all have to disappear. No one doubts Xie Wendong's words, and a concept has gradually formed in everyone's mind. As long as what Brother Dong says can be realized, even if he says he will be president tomorrow. Xie Wendong wanted to be discharged from the hospital, but under everyone's strong opposition, he had to call home and say that he would not go home at night, and then stayed in the hospital. In the evening, no one left, accompanied by Xie Wendong, chatted all night. Three Eyes have a lot of things to discuss with Xie Wendong, like brothers in the increase, lack of funds, the expansion of territory, and other gangs will have a rush. Volume 1 Juvenile Blood Chapter 11 _ How Bad Guys Are Made 1. Wait, after a night of discussion, we basically settled the matter and worked out a plan until everything was settled by Lu Jinglong. The next day, the hospital test results came out, saying that Xie Wendong only suffered from mild hypoglycemia and that everything else was healthy. This is a complete relief. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Xie Wendong and others returned to school, but Three Eyes did not follow them to prepare for the plan half a month later. When Xie Wendong and Li Shuang returned to the classroom, they were just in time for the end of class, saving the nonsense with the teacher. When the brothers in the class saw Xie Wendong coming back, they gathered around to ask questions. As I talked about it all night last night, I didn't get much sleep at all, and soon Xie Wendong became sleepy. Send the brothers away and fall asleep on the table. Until the end of the 4th class lunch break, Xie Wendong had no sign of waking up. The students in the classroom either went home or went out to eat. Only Li Shuang bought some drinks and bread outside to eat. At this time, a beautiful girl came at the door of the class, kicked the door open, stood outside and shouted, "Who is Xie Wendong? Get out here." Li Shuang in the classroom was taking a sip of bread with Coke in one hand and bread in the other when he was startled by the sudden sound and sprayed the drink all over the floor. "Damn it! Who doesn't want to die? Put the Coke and bread on the table, bow your head and pick up the stick under the table and walk out of the classroom. Ciao. There are still people who dare to come to kick the pavilion. If you want to die, you're fucking straight." Li Shuang scolded while walking, and could not be scolded by the girl kicking at the door. I thought to myself, shit, how can a girl pop up? It's really pleasing to the eye. The stick in Li Shuang's hand quickly hid behind him, put what he thought was the most charming smile on his face, handsomely shook his hair and said, "Hi, sister, what do you want with Xie Wendong?" The girl looked up and down at Li Shuang and thought to herself how this man had a bad smile on her face. She looked at it and said, "Are you Xie Wendong?" Li Shuang said with his legs crossed, leaning on the door frame in one hand, "I am Xie Wendong." No, no, no. No, no, no. Li Shuang wanted to say, "I am Xie Wendong's little brother," but as soon as he finished saying the word dong, the girl stared and kicked Li Shuang's little brother. Li Shuang jumped half a meter high in pain, threw the stick, covered his lower body with both hands and kept jumping in place. Girls do not forgive in Li Shuang body a random kick, although the strength is not great, but Li Shuang still grins with pain. I wanted to fight back, but as soon as I saw the girl angry, Li Shuang secretly sighed. Today is my bad luck. Who can get rough with such a beautiful girl? Li Shuang had no choice but to run into the classroom and shouted, "Brother Dong, don't sleep. I'm being kicked to death by the tigress. Oh my God. I just got 2 more shoe prints on my ass." This grievance in the heart, did not recruit who did not mess with others, received a slap in the face of leather shoes for nothing. Xie Wendong, who slept soundly, was awakened by Li Shuang's high-pitched voice and screams. He sat up straight and his eyes were straight. He was awake, but his brain was dormant. Xie Wendong finally woke up, while avoiding the girl's flying feet while shouting, "Sister, stop kicking. I am not Xie Wendong. He is." He pointed to Xie Wendong, who was in a daze. The girl looked in the direction Li Shuang pointed to and was shocked. "How is it him? Turn your head and shout at Li Shuang." Volume 1 Juvenile Blood Chapter 11 _ How Bad Guys Are Made 1. Is he Xie Wendong? Li Shuang was so scared that he nodded again and again and said, "Yes, he is. If you need anything, you can talk to him. Then rub your ass and find a chair to sit down." The girl came to Xie Wendong and asked, "Are you really Xie Wendong?" The latter did not reflect. Li Shuang watched curiously. The girl rolled her eyes and asked loudly, "Are you Xie Wendong?" The latter is still unresponsive. Li Shuang picked up the corners of his mouth. The girl was in a hurry and shouted, "Are you Xie Wendong?" The latter tongue stood up and hugged the girls one by one. The girls gave a shout. Li Shuang stared big eyes, and her eyes were almost flying out. Then Xie Wendong made an effort and threw the girl out sideways. With the girl's cry, the body fell to the ground heavily. and it took a long time to get up and stared at Xie Wendong in disbelief. The latter sat back in his chair and looked blankly ahead. Seeing that the girl's eyes were almost on fire, Li Shuang quickly came to Xie Wendong for fear that the girl would kick him to death for a while. Shake Xie Wendong's body and say loudly, "Brother Dong, what's the matter with you? I remember the doctor's advice when I was discharged from the hospital. Patients with hypoglycemia will be irritable when they are disturbed while sleeping." After being shaken by Li Shuang, Xie Wendong really woke up and saw that Li Shuang was still shaking hard and said loudly, "If you want to die, keep shaking." Frightened, Li Shuang quickly put his hand back and asked carefully, "Brother Dong, are you really awake?" "Nonsense. Is it a ghost talking to you?" Xie Wendong Harbin, feeling that there was something wrong with him, suddenly saw a beautiful girl staring at herself with the eyes of a beautiful girl. "Gao Huiyu," Xie Wendong exclaimed and walked over with a smile on his face. "Sister, what are you doing here? I've been here for a long time, and you threw me to the ground enthusiastically." With an angry look on her face, Gao Huiyu squeezed a word out of her teeth. No, that's impossible. How could I throw my sister to the ground? I have no idea." Xie Wendong looked back at Li Shuang with doubt, and the latter nodded definitely and said, "Brother Dong, that's what happened just now." After hearing this, Xie Wendong lowered his shoulder and whispered, "Sister, I'm really sorry. I really don't know. I may have lost my mind to you at that time. Let me buy you dinner and make amends." Gao Huiyu rolled her eyes. "Who wants your food? Let me ask you, are you really Xie Wendong?" Xie Wendong nodded and said, "Sister, did I offend you there?" Gao Huiyu said, "That's right. I want to ask you, why do you have a problem with my sister?" Looking at the boy who called himself sister, he felt either that he was so angry with his sister that he didn't sleep all night, but as soon as he met him, he couldn't hate him anymore. Xie Wendong turned his head and knew who the elder sister Gao Huiyu was talking about. He spread out his hands and said, "This is between me and your sister. I hope sister will leave it alone." After listening to Xie Wendong's words, Gao Huiyu felt a pain in her heart and said angrily, "Why can't I control it? I can take care of my sister. Who are you? Why should you command me?" At this time, people in the classroom came back one after another, and when they came in, they all looked at them strangely. Xie Wendong sighed, grabbed Gao Huiyu's arm and said, "Let's go for a walk outside. Just because I'm hungry, I need something to eat." With that, Gao Huiyu pulled her out no matter whether she wanted to or not. Walking out of school for some distance, Xie Wendong loosened his hand and said, "In fact, the relationship between me and your sister is not as bad as you think. Although we had a fight, it's all over." Gao Huiyu was pulled by Xie Wendong's arm and walked so far. She blushed a little and asked softly, "Will you still fight with my sister after that?" Xie Wendong thought for a moment and said, "There should be no chance to fight." Gao Huiyu had a lenient heart and said, "Humph, my second brother doesn't know about the fight between you and your sister. If he knew, it would make you feel better." Xie Wendong asked strangely, "Who is your second brother?" Gao Huiyu smiled and said with a naughty wink, "I won't tell you. Anyway, he is a very powerful character. Volume I Juvenile Blood Chapter 12-How to Make a Bad Guy 1. A very good character?" Xie Wendong could not guess who the man would be and said, "Then I have to meet him when I have a chance. Hee." Seeing the yearning look on his face, Gao Huiyu deliberately said, "He won't meet small potatoes like you." After saying giggle, he laughed. Looking at Gao Huiyu's naughty and naive smile, Xie Wendong was stunned. Seeing Xie Wendong looking at himself foolishly, Gao Huiyu flushed and said, "Hello, haven't you ever seen a beautiful woman?" Xie Wendong turned to himself, grabbed his shaking hand and said, "Yes, I have never seen such a beautiful sister. I wonder if such a beautiful sister would be honored to accompany me for lunch." Gao Huiyu's little hand was grabbed by Xie Wendong, and she drew it several times but didn't pull it back. Blushing as if she had covered a piece of red cloth, she bowed her head and said in a delicate voice, "All right." Looking at the delicate face of Gao Huiyu, There are ripples in Xie Wendong's heart. I really want to live like this for the rest of my life. The two stood quietly. No one spoke, and time seemed to have stopped. The scorching sun of September hung in the sky, and their figures were bathed in the sun. It seems that a century later, Xie Wendong woke up and saw that he was still holding Gao Huiyu's small hand. He blushed and loosened his hand. As if he had done something bad, he whispered, "Sorry, sister. No. Gao Huiyu put her hand on Xie Wendong's mouth, cut off his explanation and said with a smile, "Don't be my sister in the future. She is only a freshman higher than you. My relatives call me Xiaoyu, and you can also call me Xiaoyu." Xie Wendong nodded and whispered, "Xiaoyu." Sweet in her heart, Gao Huiyu pulled Xie Wendong's clothes and said, "Aren't you hungry? I'm a little hungry, too. Let's go to dinner together. Take you to a nice place." As he said that, Xie Wendong walked forward. In the distance came Xie Wendong's helpless sigh. "Just now you said you were not hungry," and Gao Huiyu's naughty laugh. "My little brother, my sister is teasing you." The shadow of the two disappeared at the end of the street. There was nothing to say in the afternoon. Xie Wendong returned home in the evening. Just after dinner, he received a call from Gao Huiyu. Xie Wendong asked, "Sister Yu, what can I do for you?" There was a giggle on the other side of the phone. "Nothing. I just miss you. I want to hear your voice." "Hey, can I call you if there's nothing wrong?" "Yes, you can. I'm always welcome. Has Sister Yu eaten yet?" "I just finished eating, and I didn't feel comfortable at all." "Why?" "What do you say? It's your fault. Ever since you and your sister had a fight, your sister has kept a straight face all day and is indifferent to people. I'm so angry. It's your fault anyway." "Hello, miss, you can't say that. I'll be very aggrieved." "Ha, ignore you. I'm going to be with my sister. Bye." The other party hung up. Xie Wendong inexplicably shook his head, did not understand what Gao Huiyu meant to call. Alas, the girl's mind is really hard to understand. Xie Wendong put the phone down and went back to his room to read. In the square hall, Xie Wendong's father watched his son enter the room and whispered to his wife, "Our son is not an object, is he? Ha ha." The next day, Xie Wendong still ran to school. When I entered the class, I saw Li Shuang and walked over lightly. Volume I Juvenile Blood Chapter 12-How to Make a Bad Guy 1. Voice said, "Xiao Shuang, you go to find Gao Chong and Zhang Yanjiang. I will wait for you in the grove." Li Shuang promised and didn't ask why. Anyway, it makes sense to know what Brother Dong does. After seeing Li Shuang leave, he put his school bag on his chair and walked out of the classroom. Li Shuang arrived soon after Xie Wendong arrived in the woods. Xie Wendong bowed his head and thought for a moment and said, "Let's discuss ways to deal with Lu Jinglong. I made a bet with Boss Gao that if we don't bring down the Black Dragon Brotherhood in half a month, we will be dismissed." Li Shuang said, "Brother Dong, I think we can find 3 eyes and let's get rid of him in one breath." Xie Wendong shook his head and said, "I haven't seen Lu Jinglong yet. I don't know what kind of person he is, and I don't know his strength. I'm afraid I'll suffer a loss if I act rashly. Boss Gao is no ordinary person. Her promise to this bet shows that the Black Dragon Brotherhood still has strength." Zhang Yanjiang took over and said, "Brother Dong is right. Lu Jinglong can have no less than 100 students alone, and with some of the out-of-school thugs he has taken over, they are definitely not small." Li Shuang said loudly, "Yanjiang, what do you say?" One side of Gao Chong said, "I think it would be better to find a few people and give him a stick when he comes home." Zhang Yanjiang bit his lip and said, "I'm afraid this won't work either. Lu Jinglong has a number 1 in a fight, and if there are fewer people, he may not be able to beat him. If many people go, they are afraid that he will run away when he sees the opportunity. That will be even more difficult. Even if he can really put him in the hospital, his brother is still there, and there are several people in there whose minds are not inferior to Lu Jinglong. He is his younger brother because he is loyal, and they still owe Lu Jinglong a favor. With them, the Black Dragon Brotherhood will not collapse, and we will give a wake-up call." Li Shuang said, "This doesn't work, and that doesn't work. So aren't we bound to lose? Xie Wendong waved his hand and asked Zhang Yanjiang, "What do you think we should do?" Zhang Yanjiang thought about it and said, "It's best to find Lu Jinglong and his backbone unprepared into a closed place, and we ambush them beforehand, so that we can have a chance to get rid of them all. As soon as they are finished, the black dragon will also fall." Li Shuang rolled his eyes and said, "That's easy for you to say. How can we get them close to a closed place? They have to be defenseless. They are not fools." Xie Wendong suddenly asked, "How many brothers can Lu Jinglong trust?" Zhang Yanjiang thought for a moment and said, "There can be 7 or 8. These people have had a life relationship with him." Xie Wendong's brain was spinning so fast that he thought about it for 5 minutes and said to everyone, "Help me check it out." And then, everyone nodded while listening to Xie Wendong. Finally, Li Shuang said, "Brother Dong, is this the right thing to do?" Before Xie Wendong spoke, Zhang Yanjiang said, "Brother Shuang, sometimes you have to do things by all means. We are out to hang out, so we can't be too particular about it." Li Shuang said with an embarrassed face, "I know this, but I just think, no, 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 no." Xie Wendong looked at Li Shuang and said loudly, "What do you think? I never said I was a good person, and what we have to do in the future will be even worse. If you have any doubts, just say it together." Volume I Juvenile Blood Chapter 12 How to Make a Bad Guy 1. Li Shuang had never seen Xie Wendong like this. He bowed his head and said, "Brother Dong, I was wrong. I won't say anything else." Xie Wendong looked slowly and said, "Xiao Shuang, I don't blame you. If you want to survive in this world, whether in the underworld or in the white world, as long as you want to survive and develop, you must have a cold heart." Li Shuang nodded and said, "Brother Dong, I understand. Anyway, I'll listen to you at any time." Xie Wendong nodded and looked at the 3 people and asked, "If you have anything else to say, just say it. If not, let's go back to the classroom. I still have some things to think about." The 3 men said in unison, "No more." Xie Wendong nodded and signaled that they could go, and then the 3 went to the teaching building. Looking at the far back of the 3, Xie Wendong walked alone in the woods, thinking about what was on his mind. Even if he defeated Lu Jinglong, what could he do to dominate in number 1 middle school? Charge a small amount of protection money? 3 eyes are right, relying on school alone will never become a big climate, can only make a little money. But if you want to make money quickly, you have to count pornography, gambling, and drugs. But these 3 are not easy to touch. One is not careful, not only do you suffer, but even your brothers fall into it. There is to make money by watching the game, but now the good ones are all taken away by the 3 underground gangs, and even the bad ones are occupied by small gangs. It seems that we really have to do it according to the plan discussed with the 3 eyes. Xie Wendong breathed a sigh of relief at the thought of this. Now that he has made up his mind, there is no reason to change. Stride towards the teaching building. After 3 days, number 1 middle school was surprisingly calm. There has not been a fight among the 3 powerful groups. Just under the calm water, a rough sea is coming. The storm is going to wash here, and a new pattern is brewing. 3 days later, at night, when Howren was on his way home, he felt upset when he thought of the meeting he had with Brother Long and his brothers. Originally, it was not peaceful enough for number 1 middle school to have Gao Boss. But now Xie Wendong has sprung up as a new force, and the situation is becoming more and more complicated. Fortunately, Xie Wendong and Boss Gao matched each other and did not have a chance to find trouble in this respect. Just as he was thinking about something on his mind, 5 people stood in the way ahead. The leader was not tall and fat, with a horizontal scar on his face and a pair of eyes fixed on him. Howren froze and asked, "Why are my brothers in my way?" The fat man smiled. "You must be Howren. My boss wants to see you. I wonder if you could do me a favor." Howren was slightly shocked. He looked at the man behind the fat man, who was wearing a middle school uniform. He understood that he probably said, "Your boss is Xie Wendong, right? But I'm not interested in seeing him. If he wants to see me, let him come in person." The fat man was Li Shuang and said, "Hey, Brother Howren is a little crazy, but it doesn't matter," Brother Dong said. If you don't want to go by yourself, we brothers can help you. He Howard squinted and said, You think you guys can stop me? A joke. Li Shuang's face darkened and said, I've heard that the Black Dragon brothers have you. Today I want to experience it. I don't know if my brother dares to fight me one-on-one. He Howard was about to speak when a voice came from behind.